Welcome to TPR Live. My name is Aaron Lindh, Content Director of High School Programs here at the Princeton Review. And today I'll be talking to you about SAT, ACT, and admissions in the time of COVID. As of today, we are now May 11th, 2020. We've been in lockdown in most locations about a bit over 7 weeks now. And so things have started to settle down when it comes to the admissions pictures, SAT and ACT, also talk a little bit about APs. So wanted to give everyone an opportunity to both learn about what things look like right now, give some advice moving forward, whether you're a senior, junior, sophomore, give you some advice how you can use this time to the best of your ability. And of course, you have the opportunity to answer some questions. My colleague Shanna is there right now in the YouTube live channel. So if you're following us live, feel free to put in some questions and Shanna will pass those along to me. So without further ado, today our agenda will talk about COVID-19 and how it affects exams. Once again, there's been some things that have become clear, though of course there's still some questions open. Talk a bit about college admissions and how college admissions has changed in this current landscape. And then, of course, what can you do and how can we help you give yourself the best opportunity possible to really find that great fit university or college, the one that's going to be the best for you. So, of course, there's a lot of spring test dates that have been canceled. In March, most of the SAT locations were canceled. There were still some that went ahead. The April ACT was canceled. The May and June SATs have been canceled. The June ACT has not yet been canceled. We'll get to that in just a moment. But obviously, a lot of things have changed. A lot of opportunities to write these tests have not been available for students. And of course, for juniors, the spring is typically the time where most of you will have planned to have taken the SAT or ACT. So obviously this is throwing everything kind of out the window. And so we are going to talk a little bit about some of the remote testing options, but also what the test companies, College Board and ACT have said will happen with regards to the standardized tests. But first, talking a bit about APs. So the test dates have been changed. If you are taking an AP, you've probably already noticed because they will have been delayed. The first AP actually just happened just over an hour ago, was the start of the AP Physics C mechanics test. So we have 3 tests every day, essentially, for the most part, over the next few weeks. So if you're registered through College Board or your school, you're registered for the May exam, do check and make sure your registration is set up. You should have received your ticket via email from College Board sometime in the last week or so. So if you are signed up for an AP and that has not happened, definitely check your registration at this link. Also make sure that you go ahead, reach out to your guidance counselors, make sure everything is set up correctly. So once again, this is going to be a review for those who are taking AP. So the June dates, there are a set of dates in June, but College Board and we are highly recommending that you use those as a makeup in case there's some issue. Because everyone's taking these tests at home, there's unfortunately the greater chance that something will happen that will not enable you to take the test at its regularly scheduled time. That's what the June dates are there for. Make sure you're using those as an opportunity. We do not recommend delaying your test until then, but of course, things might happen. So the test can be taken on any device, well, any computer type device. It is only 45 minutes long, desktop or laptop computer. You don't have a lot of time to deal with things if there are an issue. Now, of course, if you have a phone and that's you're most comfortable with, you're totally allowed to do that, but there are going to be some challenges. Test is open note, open book, but remember it's a 45-minute exam. That's not a lot of time, and College Board has indicated that they're going to make the questions such that they're not expecting most students to finish. In other words, the amount of work you accomplish in those 45 minutes is going to be a big part of how well you score on this test. Therefore, this is not an opportunity to say, I'm just going to have all my notes there. I'm going to be able to look at my notes and be able to have the perfect submission for my AP exam. That's not going to work out because you're just simply not going to have the time. 45 minutes is not a lot of time, so you need to know your stuff. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have your notes there, if only to make you feel more comfortable. But 45 minutes, you're not going to have a ton of time. Don't rely on your open notes or your open books. So, of course, you want to know the format instructions for your subjects. You can find all this information on the AP College Board website. You can also find a lot of information in this YouTube channel. We've covered this material a few times now, including some of the changes that have happened. So please check out our AP COVID-19 videos. Definitely making your own one-sheet card fact summary, especially those tests such as chemistry or physics, where you would normally be provided with a formula sheet. You're not going to have that. Certainly, you can go surf for it on the web. But once again, 45 minutes is not a lot of time. You're going to want to make sure you have that. Hard copies, also part of that, just because, well, in part, if you're using your device to write the test, you don't want to have to be juggling different windows. You want to be focused on doing the test. So if you can, make hard copies, making sure you have those on hand. Couple other things, make sure you know what content will be tested. Every AP exam, for the most part, has had at least one unit, usually about 2 units. Typically, the content that's covered March or later in your average AP curriculum. That content is not included, so you want to make sure that you know what you are responsible for and, of course, what you are not responsible for. The topics to study will likely be those earlier topics because that is going to be the content that is included in this year's AP exam. Definitely select the device you'll be using, not a day of the test decision. Choose whether you're going to type or write. You can type it in another program, be it a Word document program such as Word or Google Docs, and then copy and paste it over, or you can upload a file, or you can write on pencil and paper, take a picture of what you've written and upload that. That's going to depend. That's up to you. Definitely, once again, organizing your sources. Do not pre-write responses. They are definitely out there looking for indications that a student may have cheated. Don't rely on, once again, your notes. Do make quick reference sheets. Once again, if only to help you feel more comfortable. Choosing the space, once again, we have videos on this YouTube channel. Definitely check out the space where you're going to write this test. You want it to be quiet. You want it to be private so you can focus your energy on the test. Plan out your test dates. And really, this is not just for you, but also the other people in your home as much as possible. Once again, you want to have that isolation, that opportunity to focus. You need to work with your parents and guardians to figure out the best way to do that. Communicating where and when you're going to be tested so they can support you, which of course the best way is to give you the space that you need. Practicing at this point, you should definitely be practicing on free response questions, time conditions with the device you'll be using. If you're going to do it on the computer, writing it up in a Google Doc, do that. If you're going to be writing pencil and paper, do that. Practice where you'll be testing. If you're going to be in a room, excellent. If you're going to be in the family kitchen, find time to do that there. Resources, this is the time to figure out, oh, I really need my notes about this topic, or I really need this formula. Add them to your sheet. Make sure you focus once again on the topics being tested. If you are using especially print materials that are out there, you're going to find that it's going to cover more than what you'll see on this year's tests. So make sure you take the time to see what will be covered. Once again, of course, making these quick reference sheets, getting feedback in your practice free response questions. This can come from your teachers, your fellow students that are taking the same AP. Princeton Review also offers a service for this as well. You can check that out on our website. And really focusing on materials that are updated for the at-home test. Obviously, we're all in a situation where this is a novel. This is not something we had anticipated, of course. So look out there. There's definitely good information out there, including this YouTube channel. All right, so now to the meat of this presentation, talking about SAT and ACT. Obviously, if you're in the middle of AP season, you very well might be looking at this afterwards because you're spending your time focusing on your APs. But especially this year's juniors are really affected by everything that has happened. So want to cover these changes. So first of all, SAT changes. College Board has announced that there will be either at home or in school testing solution starting in August, more likely than not, maybe September. We'll talk about September in a moment. This comes directly from David Coleman. He's the CEO of College Board. He has indicated that in the event that schools are still closed in the fall, College Board will give you the opportunity to write the SAT. They are very committed to giving everyone that chance that wants to have that chance. So this will happen. This is great because, as we'll talk about in a moment, this means you can start to actually make concrete plans about when you'll take the SAT and how you'll prepare. This year, there will be a new date. This will be an SAT only date. There will not be SAT subject tests. This will be on September 26th. Now, especially for those of you juniors, those of you who will be seniors come the fall, it is important to note that this date is literally 1 week before the previously scheduled October 3rd SAT and SAT subject test date. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. Is this good for you? Absolutely. More opportunities to take the test, more opportunities to plan and to write the test, and perhaps also the subject tests. Amazing for students. However, you do need to plan ahead. So we still have these other dates. Essentially, starting in August, there will be an SAT every month of the year. So plan ahead. And once again, we'll get into some advice in a moment. You'll be able to register for these administrations in May, this month. And in fact, it'll be in about 2 weeks. They have announced that the week of May 26th is when they're going to start opening up applications so you can sign up for these administrations. They're going to contact you directly if you are in certain circumstances, namely you've had your SAT canceled. You'll get an exact date as to when you can sign up. So now some advice is to this. Of course, if you're a senior and you were planning on retaking the SAT, say you were aiming for a scholarship or you were in a situation where you haven't been able to take the SAT and you were planning on taking it this spring in order to apply for the fall, colleges and universities are very, very aware of how this has affected students, and they have changed their policies in a lot of cases in order to give you the opportunity. So be aware that the schools have made changes. Check out their websites. Do your research. Go look at their admissions pages, in particular looking for anything else like COVID-19 or coronavirus. They'll let you know what their policies are this year. So if you're in a situation where you have no SAT score, go and check with those schools that you're planning to apply to, or perhaps you already applied to. Say you applied in March, you were going to take the March SAT that's been canceled. May SAT isn't canceled. If you haven't yet already, go check out the schools, check their websites. Most schools have done a really excellent job of putting their policies up there, putting the information that you, the student, needs to know in order to have everything in such a way to give you the best opportunity to get accepted to those schools. Do your research there first. And then if you're not finding the information, or if your situation is in a situation where, for instance, let's say you had reasons why you weren't able to take the SAT until March, and of course your situation then is different, make sure, if you haven't already, to be in contact with the admissions departments. Check the website first. You don't want to be asking questions that are already answered, but especially if you feel like your situation falls through the cracks, reach out to them. The admissions department's job is to help you, their prospective student, have the best opportunity possible to get admitted to that school and to be a resource. So reach out to them. Don't be afraid. Of course, be your professional self. Be courteous. Be friendly. Remember that everybody's going to be in a bit under pressure right now. So will the SAT hold a little less weight? Apologies, I did miss that one about 30 seconds ago. Yes and no. It's going to be interesting. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the thing that has really changed now is the overall admissions picture. SAT is an important part of the admissions decisions in most situations, but it's not the only piece. You have your GPA, you have your extracurriculars, you have your essays, you had your letters of reference. Well, obviously for some people, the SAT has become optional. But for a lot of students, grades are pass-fail this semester. That changes the GPA part of the picture. Spring extracurriculars have been canceled. That changes part of the admissions picture. So you're left with essays and letters of reference that haven't really changed, but obviously letters of reference, your school has changed, so that's changed. So the picture has changed. Does that mean it's less or more important? It's going to depend a lot on the context. And it's going to depend a lot about you. But I believe in a lot of cases, especially in areas where a lot of schools have gone pass fail for this semester, you're going to actually see the SAT be kind of more important, just simply because everything else has fallen by the wayside. You are not automatically assigned to the August SAT if you are assigned for June SAT. You are going to need to make sure that you look for that email once again that week of May 26th to get the information on how to sign up for the August test. Main reason that's been done is because College Board is still seeing what sort of test centers are going to be available. Certainly, a lot of test centers, which are often schools, are going to do what they can to enable as many seats as possible. And so this is not to say like you'll be guaranteed able to write in your preferred location, but there's definitely been indication from a lot of school districts, from College Board themselves, and we're going to see also on ACT side, to enable as many students as possible to take the tests coming this fall. And so you're still going to have to, however, sign up. So yes, and you're going to still have to register for the new SAT dates, whether it's online or in person. So there will not be an opportunity to retake the AP exams. They have already said that this is going to be your shot. So you have 1 or 2 questions depending. Now, for AP exams, colleges have indicated, many colleges, not everyone, but many colleges have indicated that they will be accepting this year's scores. So you're not going to have another chance to retake it, unfortunately. It's really going to be, this is going to be your opportunity. All right, so now SAT advice for juniors. So of course, we're going to have these administrations. And once again, College Board has indicated, as flat out said, there will be opportunities to take the SAT this fall, starting in August. Ideally, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're back to normal. It's going to be back typically in your school, some sort of test location, if not online. So you can start to plan. If you're a senior, if you're a junior, a rising senior, definitely sit down, decide when you're going to be taking the SAT. That's going to be a very interesting question about international students and getting scholarships. Certainly, as we'll talk about a little bit later, things are going to be a bit weird. Schools are going to have, in a lot of cases, less money because of what's happened in the financial parts of the economy. But on the flip side, they're going to also see a lot fewer international students in a lot of cases. So you're going to really need to do your research. Really, my answer to you would be check out the individual schools you're interested in. High school students taking a gap year. We'll talk about that in a moment. That's certainly going to be a lot more common, just given how the situation has planned out. Personally, I am for a gap year. Do make sure you're doing something in that. So GPAs, extracurricular. I think that GPAs and extracurriculars are actually going to have a bit less weight in a lot of circumstances. Extracurriculars are very tough because, let's say, if you are a strong theater person and your school always does that spring play, and this year was going to be your year, you're going to be the lead, and that got canceled. There's going to be a lot of people in those circumstances where, especially their spring and perhaps even summer extracurriculars got canceled. AP testing when it comes to admissions has always been pretty low. Schools love to see that you've taken AP courses. That's really important. That carries a lot of weight. And right now it's probably going to carry even more weight. I believe that the rigor of your class load, how difficult the courses you're taking is going to be a big factor, especially because a lot of these other things, once again, are going to be lesser factors. And SAT testing, I have a feeling it's going to be more important than a lot of people think, even though a lot of schools are going test optional this year, simply because of the lack of other data. So we have a ton of information on this site about SAT, ACT, and AP. If you're a freshman in high school, you are doing the right thing. You're planning ahead. Certainly, my recommendations would be check out this channel for introductions to the SAT, the ACT, to APs. You're going to learn. There's a lot to learn. If you're thinking about it now, that's awesome. Other places to go, certainly our website, so not just our YouTube channel. Our website has lots of information. You can take free practice tests of the SAT and ACT. You can learn about the APs that are available. You also have your guidance counselors at school. Certainly right now, your guidance counselors are going to be busy wrapping up this year's seniors, especially given how strange the circumstances are everywhere. However, come the fall, definitely approach them. Say, I'm learning about this. I want to know what are going to be the best steps. Generally speaking, I would assume yes. If your school is still going to be regular grades and not pass fail, the GPA is still going to be important. GPA is always important because it's going to be a really strong indicator of how successful you're going to be in college, which is ultimately one of the main things that admissions committees need to figure out. So will it hold the same weight? I think it's going to be challenging this year because it's not going to be an apples to apples comparison. Not only, of course, you're going to have other schools that have gone past fail, you're also going to have this circumstance where everybody's life situation has gotten really strange. It's been 7 weeks since I've gone further than a mile from where I live. Everybody's in this really weird situation. And so it'll be interesting to see. Certainly my recommendation, my advice is have strong grades, and then you don't have to worry about that. Yes, there will be SAT subject tests this fall. There will not be subject tests on the September date, that new date. And in the SAT subject tests that got canceled this spring will be offered in the fall. I believe it is Korean, German, and Latin. I know there were 3 languages that had gotten canceled that are typically only offered once a year. Those dates have not yet been announced by College Board, so continue to follow their website if you were already signed up for them. Hopefully College Board will incorporate that in their communications to you about rescheduling, but those will be offered in the fall. Once again, if it's going to be either in person or at home on your computer or in some other format, that will be something that will happen. Awesome. So, sophomores and freshmen, for those of you out there who are getting a jump on this, definitely grades are your number one job. This is always going to be the case, especially right now. Things are weird, but ironically, this is in some ways good preparation for how you're going to be treated as a college student. Most of you are no longer sitting in class for 7 or 8 hours a day. You have an hour here, an hour there. You have homework that you have to do on your own. You're communicating with your teachers via email when you're not having your Zoom meetings. In a lot of ways, what's happening now is going to emulate your experience in college. Obviously, in college, you'll actually be going physically to classrooms. You'll be able to go to your teacher's office hours and see them in person, but you'll still be able to email them. But a lot of the rhythm of your days now is going to be very similar to what you'll experience in college. So this is a great opportunity to just show that you can excel in this sort of circumstances. Certainly, when it comes to test dates, make sure you're registered as soon as you can. College Board has indicated that seniors, so next year's seniors, so this year's juniors, class of 2021, don't have SAT dates, or those who already signed up are going to have preference. They're going to be able to sign up first, but definitely get in those test dates earlier rather than later. The essay is definitely going to be a lot more important. There's a lot of unknowns in this admissions picture. The essay is going to be huge, and certainly we'll talk about this in a little bit, but certainly they're not going to want to hear the sob story of how terrible it was that your extracurriculars got canceled and blah, 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 because that's going to be the case for everyone. But they are going to be interested in hearing how did you adapt and overcome the circumstance that we're all in right now. You don't have to write about this, but certainly it's going to be a common topic. But absolutely, the application essay is going to be important, especially given all the other pieces. Application essay, out of the entire picture of college admissions, is really the one thing that hasn't changed. You still are writing an essay. You still have a lot of control there. And as we're going to see once I get to those slides, a big part of my advice for you is to take this time, probably not right this moment, especially if you're in a situation where you're writing APs, you're probably getting ready to write some exams for school. But once we get into the summer, great opportunity to use the essay as a way to distinguish yourself. So getting back to sophomores registering, longer you wait, less chance you'll get the date or location. Once again, schools, College Board, they have indicated that they're going to try to open up as many seats as possible, but no one really knows what the world circumstances are going to look like. If, for instance, we're back in school, but we're still following social distancing rules, we can no longer have students every 3 feet. We need to have 6 feet. Well, we're going to lose about half our capacity. So we need to so you want to make sure you're being losing that deposit, losing your registration fee. So that was all College Board's changes for SAT. Now let's talk about ACT. So ACT is taking a different approach than College Board. College Board canceled the June SAT a few weeks ago now, whereas ACT, as of right this moment, once again, if you're watching from the future, today is May 11th, 2020. As of right now, the June 13th test date is still a go. So ACT is taking the optimistic approach that in June 13th, there will be at least some locations that will be able to offer the ACT as originally scheduled. ACT is in contact with all the test centers, and as you all know, in a lot of locations, these are local schools. May 22nd is the date that ACT has announced that they will be using as the cutoff date for test centers to decide whether or not they're going to offer the June 13th test. So if you're in a situation where you're signed up for the June test, you're going to want to keep an eye out, especially on or around the 22nd of May, to see whether or not it's going to go ahead. Another thing ACT has already announced is that they're having a June 20th date as a makeup date for this June 13th date. The idea is that if there are locations where June 13th is going to be too soon for them to offer the ACT, for them to open up their schools wherever they're going to have these tests, but a week additional time will let them offer the ACT. ACT has already announced that's fine. We've made arrangements for there to be another administration on the 20th. Same thing will happen with the July ACT. July 18th is still a go. There's this July 25th makeup date in case that extra week will allow more test centers to offer the ACT. So certainly in those sort of thing, it's really going to depend, like it's going to be a really strange admissions situation. So like letter grades versus having no letter grades, really colleges know right now that this is out of your control. And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. Colleges are going to be concerned about the things that you can control. If you're in a school district that has gone pass fail and no letter grades, you can't control that. What can you control? You can control your essay. That's going to be huge. Your letters of reference are also going to be huge this year. You can also control, to a degree, SAT and ACT. So our advice is going to be, if your life circumstances allow it, absolutely plan on taking the SAT or the ACT. So how are they going to distinguish? It's really going to depend on the school. And frankly, it's going to depend on the individual student circumstance. It's unfortunately for students, this year really is going to feel a lot more arbitrary, even compared to typical years where the admissions decisions often do feel like, well, I had all this great stuff and I submitted it to these two schools, and this other school, I got into the quote unquote harder school, the one with a more competitive admissions rates, but I got rejected from this other school, which is quote unquote easier to get into. What gives? That's going to happen even more this year. So our big advice there, obviously beyond what you can control, is fit. A big thing for a lot of schools this year is going to be how to fit. How do you fit the profile? How is that school going to be a good fit for you, and vice versa? So if you're younger than a junior, like if grades have dropped, that's definitely going to be, it's never a good sign to see grades dropping. Certainly in the current circumstances, colleges are going to be more lenient about that, especially if we get into the fall everything comes back to normal and your grades go back up. My advice is really going to be, and we'll get into this a little bit, reach out to your teachers, do what you can to adjust, show your ability to adapt, but also keep in mind that life circumstances might just be the case. If you're somebody growing up in a household where you don't have your own room, you don't have a location where you can quietly do homework because you have siblings around or pets or whatever, they're going to be understanding of that. Do keep in mind, will it negatively affect you? Probably yes, but probably less so than in a normal circumstance. So my advice there, really reach out to your teachers, try to work with your family members to come up with a way to help you do this. But because ultimately they're going to take the information they have, and everybody is in the same circumstance, so it's probably, you're not going to be alone. But college admissions is a strange beast, and so it's going to be important to make sure you're doing everything you have in your power to show the best version of yourself. So a couple ACT changes, well, not actually kind of not changes, this is the next point. So ACT had announced a few months ago that they're going to offer the ACT online test. This is their name for a test you take at a test center. So it's not really an online test in the way most of us would think, but it's a computer-based ACT. Advantage to the computer-based ACT is that you're going to get your scores for your multiple choice sections in about 2 to 3 business days. So you'll be able to take the test on Saturday, have your score typically the next Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm expecting that this is going to be attractive for a lot of you who are rising seniors because it'll give you the opportunity to take the test. You go take the test in September, and you'll know within a few days, do I need to retake the ACT or am I done? So I'm expecting this to be really popular. The single section testing will also go ahead as planned. So these are all, assuming we're at test centers, regardless of whether students are back in school or not, ACT has announced, or at least they appear to have announced, that they're going to provide at-home testing in late fall or early winter. This is looking more and more like December based on recent communications from ACT. The idea here is that even if everything is back to normal come winter in the Northern Hemisphere, the ACT is going to be offered in such a way that you'll be able to take it at home. Now, will this actually happen if everything's back to normal? Who knows? I'm cautiously optimistic that this will be implemented. But certainly the challenge here, I will note, is the timeline if you're going to be a senior. The thing that gives me some reservations is that late fall or early winter is going to be late for a lot of seniors, especially those looking at early decision or early action. So you want to keep this in mind. You're going to need to make a decision. If your plan was to take the ACT, but you're in a situation where June is definitely not happening because things are still going to be locked down and July is not looking good either. If things are still locked down come early fall and you were planning an ACT, you might have to pivot to SAT because even in the worst circumstance, College Board has said they will be offering this in August, even if it's at home. ACT hasn't committed to that yet. So that's a big distinction between the two tests that you need to be aware of. And once again, this is also going to play into where you are located. If you're in a location where things have already started to open up, where they're already talking about having things get back to normal, and knock on wood, we don't have a return to the current situation, you may be able to take the ACT, but there is that chance that you won't be able to do late fall or early winter. So ACT advice, first of all, if your test was canceled in April, you are not automatically registered for June in most circumstances. You should have received an email from ACT about rescheduling instructions. So if you were signed for April and you want to take the June, make sure you check your email, you go to your ACT student account, make sure you're signed up. Once again, you will be refunded if the test does not run. So if that is something that you're interested in, definitely something to look into. So accommodations advice. So if you are a student who receives accommodations on these tests, you will get accommodations, but note that the exact accommodations may change. Some of these are going to be based on availability of things such as, let's say, if you need a reader to meet your accommodations, there might be difficulty in doing that. So you need to make sure that you're working with your counselor and you're contacting the College Board or ACT, depending on which test you're taking, to ensure that you have all your accommodations in place. So remote testing. Maybe there's some of you that took the AP Physics C mechanics earlier today. I'm sure a lot of you will be taking some tests between now and the next couple of weeks at home, APs. And once again, there is the possibility of SAT and ACT in the fall being at home. So you need to make sure that you're doing as much as you can to set yourself up for success. And by the way, this stock photo is not it. It's sitting on your bed, like with your laptop and a snack and stuff, your notes strewn everywhere. It's not going to be the best way to do this. So, few tips. First of all, don't be surprised. Make sure you check the exam's instructions and protocols and requirements. Right now for the APs, College Board has created a mock login, so you can go and you can log in. You want to make sure you look at all their information. For instance, College Board is requiring that you put your AP ID and your initials on your pages. Even though you're uploading them through your account, College Board still wants this information on there. So make sure you follow those things. Finding your space, comfortable, quiet space, free of distractions and other people. And once again, as we talked about earlier, use that space to practice as much as possible. You are going to need to work with your family to minimize distractions as much as possible. That's a huge challenge of taking a test remotely, making sure that they're aware of how important this test is for you and for your future, and doing the most they can to give you an opportunity to succeed. Certainly following the rules. When you're practicing, follow the same rules and guidelines. Perfect practice makes perfect. You probably heard practice makes perfect, but if you're not practicing in such a way that's going to reflect, in this case, the test that you're actually taking, let's say if you introduce extra breaks, or instead of taking 45 minutes for your AP, you take an hour, you're not practicing what you need to be practicing. You want to follow the guidelines, make things emulate the test as much as possible. Do have the test format memorized. You don't want to be reading instructions in the day exam. You want to be using the time to show your understanding of the content, to show your analytical skills, to show off everything that you've been preparing for when it comes to taking that test. So there's already been lots of questions. Once again, it's wonderful. I love hearing questions. So the college admissions landscape is going to be strange this year. So once again, spring events, extracurriculars, there's like certain honors and awards, exams are canceled, not just standardized tests. In some locations, maybe you're not even having a school exam. Everything is up in the air. So colleges are working hard to change their admissions, at least for this class, for the incoming class, for those of you that would be applying in the fall or the spring to start in September 2021. So big news, of course, is that many schools have gone test optional for next year's applicants. I do want to point out it is test optional. We're going to come back to that in a moment. It's not saying no tests at all or test blind. Big names, of course, University of California system, Boston University, Oregon State universities. So there's been a lot of colleges that are acknowledging that this time of the year, the end of the junior school year, is the most common time for students to start taking those standardized tests. And so they've acknowledged this. Now, once again, this is test optional, not test blind in most cases. So you're going to want to be aware of this. Also for 2021, if you are younger than a junior, if you're a freshman or a sophomore, most of these schools have indicated that this is going to be a one-year thing. We'll see what happens later. No one knows what the future is going to hold. But as of right now, this really only applies to this year's juniors, those of you who will be seniors come September. So they are assuring students that they'll accept pass-fail grades. They're going to view grades with leniency. We already had some questions here. Colleges are saying this. Admissions is always a little strange because you're always going to be compared to others. they're going to acknowledge the things you can control, not what you can't. If you can't control your school going pass fail, they're not going to hold that against you, but they are going to be comparing you to others if you do have grades. So obviously, in-person situations, particularly in-person interviews, schools will go to online interviews. I know with some schools, they've done online interviews previously anyway, depending on your location. So this is definitely something that'll happen if you're applying to a school that does those sort of interviews. Of course, once again, they're not going to penalize you for things you can't control. So for all these things being suspended for this past semester, they're not going to be penalizing students. They understand that the spring sports didn't happen. So our advice, the first big piece of advice, and this has always been the advice, this is not just a COVID-19 situation piece of advice. Do your research. Check out the websites. Schools, once again, they've been being really, really on top of making sure students know the information that they need to know. Check out their websites for things such as test policies, grade policies, admissions timelines. A lot of schools have already announced that they have adjusted the timelines for next year, given what's happened with COVID. A lot of others have announced that they're going to consider changing, want to keep, certainly bookmark these pages, make sure you go review them. Any other changes to requirements. A lot of schools have started to announce how they're going to reweigh things, given, for instance, exams are going to be optional, like standardized tests. Definitely checking out their website, first piece of information. And once again, this is just generic information in any circumstance. Do your research. There's a lot of information out there. Check out the school's websites. Once again, this idea of test optional not meaning test prohibited. So you should not jeopardize your own life circumstances in order to take the SAT or ACT. But if you're worried about admissions, if you have ambitious goals, if you're in a situation where maybe your grades this spring aren't where you'd want them to be, or you've gone past fail and you were really hoping that this semester was going to be the semester you can show off, tests can make a big difference. This is an opportunity where you can really change your appearance as an applicant by simply showing that you've done the hard thing and you've done the test. So once again, it's going to distinguish you from other applicants. It's more information, especially if you're in a situation where your grades have gone past fail. Here's another evaluative sort of piece of the puzzle that admissions can look at. And certainly we've known this from schools that have been test optional for a while. Test optional often means, well, tests are still used when it comes to scholarships, which comes back on the idea of doing your research. So when it comes to extracurriculars, obviously the norm is pretty not the thing right now. So things you can do in this new normal environment. Find ways you can pursue your passions. If you're a musician, this is an opportunity to put in a lot of practice, or perhaps put out some YouTube videos or something. Or if you're a writer, obviously, like, absolutely go nuts, have a blog, have whatever. Try to find ways to pursue your passions in this situation. It's going to enrich your life as well as your college applications, but it's also going to help be a way to show how you adapted to college admissions committees. Obviously, all of us hope that we're not going to have another pandemic come next year, the year after, but all of you will have some cases where you're going to need to adapt when it comes to going off to college or university. There's going to be things that are going to happen in your life, in school, whatever. This is an opportunity to show that you're adaptable, that you're able to take a situation, as terrible as it is, and make something of it. And so here's a way you can do that. Find a way to pursue your passions, whatever that looks like. If you go on YouTube, you find people that are doing plays where they're doing streaming. Everybody's at home and they cut it all together. Just find some way to use this time and still pursue those. So there are silver linings to the situation. Obviously, not to say that this is positive. This is absolutely one of the worst things that's happened, and certainly in all of our lifetimes. So, of course, admissions don't want to hear, I was stuck at home during COVID-19. Guess what? Everyone's been stuck at home during COVID-19. They want to hear things that are going to distinguish you from the other applicants. So, here are some things instead. So, demonstrated interest. This is actually something that, in my opinion, has actually democratized a lot of the process. One of the things, in particular at really competitive schools, that they consider quite highly is demonstrated interest. Are you applying to our college because you are legitimately interested in our college versus are you applying to our college because the name would look good on your resume after you graduate? Demonstrated interest is the way you show that I am interested in your school because I want to go to your school, not because I want your name next to my degree when I put out my resume to look for a job after I graduate. Historically, the best way to show interest, to demonstrate interest, has been to make college visits. Well, this is problematic if you're not in the area of where you want to go to college, if you don't have the time or the money to make those sorts of trips. Now, no one can do that. We're all stuck at home. Colleges have adapted by offering online versions of these sort of college visits. Some cases, they've had the tour guides walking through the empty campus, live streaming their tour, and you can ask questions. A lot of admissions departments have been having Q&A sessions, have been having information sessions online, kind of just like this. And so this is actually a great opportunity, especially if you weren't necessarily in a circumstance to go to the physical campus previously anyway. You can now demonstrate interest from home. Attend these virtual events. Also contacting admissions committees, certainly a big part of their job is to answer these sorts of questions. And so contacting them, but always check the website first. The one thing that admissions committees do not want to hear are questions that are answered by their website. But if you have questions that aren't answered, if you're in special circumstances, if you can come up with questions, if you have a particular field you're interested in, and you're just like, hey, I'm interested in this major, I see there's all these people in this department, is there somebody I should contact? Whatever it is, definitely reaching out. Admissions committees like to hear from students. That's a big part of the job. They're in this job because they want to help prospective students come to their school. Contact them. This is a great way to show demonstrated interest. So when it comes to virtually connecting with schools, definitely doing your research. Do that research the departments, joining and attending the virtual admissions events. I do want to point out, if they have signups, the signups for these are really important. Schools track this information. They track whether you signed up for the event. They track whether you've gone to the event. So if you have these schools that you're really interested in, you need to demonstrate that interest, and here's a great opportunity to do that. Of course, these specific, genuine questions, think about, like, if you were able to go to a college fair, what would you ask them? Once again, they're going to track this, and they're going to track this, and this is the sort of thing that can distinguish you from other applicants, and especially this year, once again, grades are going to be all over the place. A lot of students aren't going to have grades for this past semester. This standardized testing is not going to be a universal this year at a lot of schools. This is another way where you can distinguish yourself. Things you shouldn't do. Don't ask questions that are answered on the school's website. Don't ask questions that pertain to that contact. It is fine to ask the question of, I am not sure who to ask this question of, who should I contact? But don't assume that whoever you're emailing can answer any questions, especially if it's, say, very specific to the first year program in biology at this school. The admissions department is probably not going to know the answer to that sort of question, but asking them, hey, I looked at the biology department's website. It's unclear who would be the best person. Who should I contact? They're going to be the ones who can help you out with that. Don't be overly casual. This is really the way I like to say, you want to be personal, but you want to be the professional version of you. If you think about what you would do, let's say in a job interview, if you've done one, great. If not, you know what a job interview is about. That sort of tone is what you're looking for. Once again, they track this stuff. And if you're polite, if you're professional, if you're clear, you're appreciative, that's going to be a bonus. If you're not those things, they will keep track of that as well. This is your goal. You want to form a connection with someone who can speak to your strengths. You want to form a connection that's when they come to look at their applications, they go, oh yeah, I remember talking to them. I remember they emailed or they talked on a phone call. They came to these online information sessions and asked a few good questions. I remember this person. That's going to be one of those things that's going to help you stick out in this year's applicant pool. Once again, especially given that a lot of the information that colleges historically have relied on is not there or is different somehow. Another big silver lining is your letters of recommendation. So here's an opportunity for you to take advantage of your relationships, but also really to show how you've adapted. Once again, in a lot of strange ways, your experience right now in school is very similar to what your experience is going to be in college. And so doing the things that are going to help you succeed in school anyway. Of course, if you have grades, that's important. But even if not, letters of recommendation, frankly, are probably going to be more important. Do things like attend class. I know it sounds silly, but it's obviously a lot easier to not do that in our current situation. Reaching out to teachers. Once again, emailing them, asking for a one-on-one meeting if they have time, but reaching out to them, saying, like, here's my circumstance. Is there something you can, like, some advice you can give me? That's the sort of thing that's going to show well when it comes to them writing letters of recommendation. Keeping up with the homework. Once again, this is all great preparation for college. This is a silver lining, absolutely. I'd much prefer that you were all in school like you were supposed to have been, but this is a way you can distinguish yourself in the admissions process through the lens of your teacher and the letter of recommendation they write for you. We talked about this earlier. Essays, I do believe essays are going to be even more important this year than they are typically, and they are typically very important. Once again, you don't want to write all stuck at home. One piece of advice that I have always given for college admissions essays is you want to write the essay that no one else could have written. Right now, everyone can write the I'm stuck at home essay because we're all stuck at home. You instead want to write, here's how I adapted. What did you do? What sort of things did you do to help you make the most of this difficult time in our lives? And this is going to be different from all of you. But remember, this can include things like reaching out for help, working with your family members to try to find a way. Maybe you're in a situation, there's only one computer and there's 3 of you kids. Like, you're figuring out a way that you're scheduling it and you're doing it so you can do some homework, pencil and paper, whatever it is. These are things that are going to be helpful. Another thing you can use this time, you can read sample essays. We have a book in the bookstores, College Essays That Made a Difference. You can get it on Amazon. They can ship it to your house. You can get an ebook version. You can also go online and find lots of sample essays. Reading these can help give you lots of ideas of what to write and how to write. But once again, you want to write the essay that only you can write. And then drafting, revising, reviewing, proofreading. Remember that writing is a process. Certainly, like those of you taking APs know, like, well, it's not much of a process right now. I got to sit down, I get the question, I have to spit out what I know. But good writing takes time. There's a quote by Ernest Hemingway about drafts that I really can't say in this particular audience, but draft, review it, revise it, especially for like, well, I have time. I want to spend this time in such a way that's going to help my college admissions chances. Start writing. Like, start writing something. Is it going to be what you submit in the fall? No, but it'll get you started and use that time, because not only will it be helpful for your admissions essay, but frankly, it's going to make you a better writer. And no matter what you end up doing in life, writing is a skill that if you have it, it'll help you distinguish yourself over and over and over again. So in our last few minutes, giving some advice about things you can do, things that we at the Princeton Review can do to help. Certainly preparation and planning are going to be key. We do have free online practice tests. Those of you who are freshmen, sophomore, juniors, if you've not taken a practice test, this is the place to start. These are timed. They're going to give you a representative look at what these tests are about, give you a score, give you an idea of where you're starting, give you some score reports that'll help you identify any strengths and weaknesses. So you'll be able to see, hey, here's what I've learned. Webinar sample classes, hey, you're doing one right now. All right, you're here listening to me. You're working on what you need to be doing for admissions. So we have sessions. We're no longer going to be 5 days a week because the APs have started. We've been doing 5 days a week, but we're still going to be doing multiple times a week. Certainly planned, plus when things come up. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, you'll be able to see when our videos come up, when we have our next live streams. There's going to be lots of information. There's already lots of information up there. We have sample classes. If you go to our website, princetonreview.com, you can check out right now, they're all online. So you can just check out things like, hey, when's the next sample class? It's free. You can log in. You get to work more in this system. You're seeing a screenshot of what our online classroom looks like. Unfortunately, in the YouTube world, can't make it work with YouTube. Haven't gotten there yet, technology-wise. But you'll be able to see what it's like. You'll be able to learn what it's like to have what our classes are like. You'll learn more about these tests. They'll give you another opportunity to ask some questions. And of course, college is more about scores. Grades are important. Applications are important. Once again, it's a picture. Remember that admissions is not just a piece or a couple pieces. It's really the entire picture. And especially this year that everything has changed. We're in an entirely different circumstance. As much as you can control, showing that you're able to control those pieces is what's going to set you apart. All right, so we have a couple minutes for questions. So we'll just give a moment to see if any other questions come through. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you all very much for coming out today. I know that there's obviously lots of other things going on, and certainly I wish you all the best. So just give it a moment and see if any other questions come in. All right, I can't quite tell if there's any other questions, so I'm just going to wrap this up here. Of course, you could always ask those questions. Awesome, excellent, thank you. So thank you all very much once again, and I hope you have a wonderful